Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Launch Program. It's good to see everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Hi, good, thanks.
Good,
Doing
good,
well.
good. Good, good. I have asked Don Phelan, who is one of our five-star real estate deal doctors. He's been in business 40 years, Don?
38. 38.
38, almost 40 years. And Don grew his business by working expired listings. So I wanted to ask him to come in today to share his expertise with you. And so, Don, how many homes did you sell that were previously on the market that another agent didn't sell?
I haven't counted lately, but as of about 10 years ago, it was over 400.
That's a lot of homes. So, do you think there's an opportunity here?
I do. There is there will always be expired listings because there are always going to be agents who need a listing, want a listing, and they're going to take it at any price, particularly in the seller's market. Now, in the seller's market that we've had, there's a lower percentage of those that aren't selling, but there will always be expired listings out there.
Okay, cool. So, let's talk about why did you choose when you started your career, why did you choose to focus on expired listings?
Because they're nicer than Fizbos.
Okay.
Fizbos are mean. I don't like Fizbos.
Okay.
Fizbos think that they know more than you, and they are very quick to remind you of that every time. Expired listings at least have once hired a real estate agent. They've already made that commitment at one point previously. Um, they want to sell their house. They've indicated that by the fact that they put it on the market before. And as I said, there's always going to be realtors who are going to take a listing that is not ready for market or overpriced, and it will ultimately fail. So I thought this is fertile ground for me. And
Hmm.
it turned out to be true. But there's also a lot of competition for expired listings, or at least there used to be. There
Hmm.
doesn't seem to be as much anymore.
I know in my area, there are those that are known for calling expired listings, and they do really well. So we're going to dive into that today. So, Don, what's the first thing you would tell an agent that wants to pursue expired listings?
Well, first of all, I would say there are three things actually. Number one, never, never, never berate your competition. Don't jump on the bandwagon when you say to the seller, "Do you have any idea why it didn't sell?" And they go, "Well, it was all the agent's fault. The agent didn't do this. Agent didn't do that." Right now, at first, you want to gather information, but don't jump on the bandwagon and say, "Oh yeah, I know that agent is bad," or whatever. It suggests to the seller, if you do that, it suggests to the seller that they made a bad choice last time, and that is a way of calling them stupid. And that's not what we want to do right out of the gate. The other
Yeah.
thing, get in the door honestly. I can't tell you the number of times that I've heard agents say, call up an expired listing and say, "Hey, if I have a buyer, I've got a buyer for your house, going to come look at your house." And they don't have a buyer. And ultimately, it's going to blow up in their face when they find out that they didn't get in the door honestly. Um, then the third thing is keep it real, be yourself, avoid using a script, have a process, have some language that you use, consistency so that it rolls off your tongue, but don't play 20 questions. It's not going to work well.
Okay. So I've got him on the phone. I'm having a conversation. Then what?
Well, even before you get on the phone, you have to understand their mindset. They're upset, they're angry, they're disappointed, they're mad at their agent, they're mad at the world, they're mad at themselves, they're mad at the market and buyers who didn't buy their house. And it extends to now they're mad at you. And you can't take it personally. You have to understand that it's not you they're really mad at, it's the circumstances of an agent who may not have marketed it properly or prepared it or priced it properly, but now they feel like this balloon about to explode. And what we want to do in this situation is we want to deflate that balloon. We want to get them talking and say, with questions that will help them explain their position, what their motivations are, and so on. And in that conversation, we want to go psh, psh, get that balloon down so that you can have a reasonable conversation with them. And sometimes it's hard, but there's a process to do that.
Hmm. So listening here is really important. We want to get them to talk. So now what do I do? Do I have a script? What am I going to say?
I don't use a script. Um, I use what I call a process. I have five essential questions, and I'll share those in a second. But they're just questions to frame the conversation. They're not to make my conversation stilted or scripted or, you know, always the same. My conversation with them is always going to be flexible based on what I'm hearing, which is why, as you say, Kim, it's all about listening. You really have to listen and understand what they're saying to you. So the five questions I have that I've used for years is number one, do you still want to sell? If they say no, the job we thought we were going to get in St. Louis is gone. They gave it to somebody else, and so we're not moving. That was the only reason we were going to move. Well, that's a condition. I can end my conversation right there. Thank you for your time because they're not going to sell. So, number one, do you still want to sell? Number two, when you decided to sell, when you put your home on the market before, what did you hope to accomplish? And they go, well, to sell. No. Did you want to go bigger, smaller, move to another country, move to another state, change schools, get lakefront? What is it you wanted to do when you first put your home on the market? Because that's going to go to their motivation and their ability to move. And now, right now, we're not answering questions. We're not providing solutions. We're simply gathering information. Third question: when you had it on the market before, do you know why it didn't sell? I notice I didn't say, do you know why you didn't sell it? Because that's a blaming question pointed at them. I'm blaming it on the house. The house didn't sell. Do you know why the house didn't sell? And of course, the first thing that they're going to say is, well, my agent didn't do something. They didn't hold enough open houses. They only held 37 open houses in the first 2 weeks. What do you want? So, I mean, it's an exaggeration, but not a lot. Fourth question is, how did you arrive at your price? And again, they're going to blame it on the agent. Well, the agent said, do this. Be prepared. We're not going to argue about whether the agent did or didn't right now. We're just going to listen. We're going to understand. If they say, well, based on what we need to make a move, we priced it at such and such. And okay, help me understand. Would you share with me how much you need to make a move? Would you be willing to share that information? Again, you're just collecting as much information as possible. And the last question I always ask, number five question is, what would it do to your plans if you could not sell? And what's shocking to me is that no other agent had ever asked them that question.
Hmm.
They look at me like, huh? What do you mean? I never even thought of the possibility that my house wouldn't sell. It had to sell. It was just a matter that the agent didn't do enough. So those are the five questions. And that's that. I tell people always listen for the answer. Wait for the answer. Don't move on until you have a clear idea of what that seller's position is.
Perfect. So you told us what the five things are. So let's dive in just a little bit more under question one. You hit some of these thoughts here, but can we give them some talking points?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, so question one, you said, do you want to sell? And a lot of times, what's the response? When we call, say, hey, Mr. For Sale by Owner, do you want to sell? What do they say typically?
Yeah. Do you have a buyer?
You have a buyer.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And my
then what do we say?
and my response is, I don't know. I haven't seen your house, but do
Okay.
you still want to sell? Because I'm gonna get that answer before I move on. If I don't get an answer to that question, I'm wasting my time. And
Okay.
and then they'll say, well, for example, we didn't get that job in St. Louis that we thought we were going to get, so we're not going to move. Again, that's a condition. I'm not going to go down that road if they're not a legitimate seller. However, if they say, for example, well, we still want to sell, but we're going to hold off until spring, or we want to wait until the kids get back in school, or we want to wait till summer, whatever that is, now you know that they still want to sell. We're not going to solve that problem right now. We're not going to address that. We're still collecting information.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to change their minds, not yet. Just write it down in your notes. You can ask them something like, well, in your mind, for example, Jim, when does spring start? Does that start like February 15th, or does that start in the middle of May? When
Northern Michigan, it starts in June.
or early July, it seems. Yeah,
Or after my vacation. I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
after spring break, right?
yeah.
So I
And
love that question.
well, yeah, and they say, well, when the flowers start to bloom, okay, that's like first couple of weeks of May, right? In Michigan. So it's important again. Now you're starting to set up a framework of what their time is, what timing you're going to recommend to them when you sit down and talk to them, and how that plays into price and market time and all of those things.
That's excellent. You just keep bringing it in, right?
Right.
Just bring it in, asking more questions. So then we're going to move on to when you decided to sell, what did you hope to do? So
Let
now
me
we're
stay at
looking
one for
at,
just 1 second. I know
Sure,
okay,
you have an agenda to make this clean, but
no problem.
one answer that I anticipate hearing would be, well, I don't know. What do you have to say? When you say, do you still want to sell? Well, maybe. What do you got?
That's a fair question. Yes, that's a question you're going to get. And one of the things that I have said is I've got a marketing plan that is better than any on the market, but I want to make sure that it fits your needs. So again, do you want to sell?
then you're just going to move right on to number
I'm,
two. So
I'm,
when you
I'm
decided to
gonna,
sell, what did you hope to do?
yeah, and I'm gonna get that answer number one before I move on. No matter
Okay.
what obstacle they throw in front of me, I will address it, but I'm gonna go back and get the answer to number one. Now we're at number two.
Yep.
And when you had your house on the market before, do you have any idea why? Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Yes. When you did decide to sell, what were you hoping to do? Were they wanting bigger,
Yeah,
smaller, change schools, relocate,
yeah.
move?
And again, that goes to the motivation. If they're moving for a job, for example, they're on a timeline. They have to do it. If their objective is to get the kids in school before school starts, for example, they're on a timeline.
Hmm.
Sometimes they'll say, well, we're in no hurry. We don't have to. Okay, that may have an impact on how you price the house, but it also may have an impact on your decision whether or not to take that listing at all. If they're not motivated, I'm not sure I want to spend my time with it.
Right. Right. Perfect. Then the next question is, when you had your home on the market before, do you have any idea why it didn't sell?
Yes,
What's
exactly.
what's the most frequent answer that you get?
Well, the agent didn't do their job in some fashion. They
Yep.
didn't have enough open houses. They didn't advertise enough. They didn't call people on the phone. They didn't drag people across the driveway to get to the house. It's always going to be the prior agent's fault.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't let it sit there. I say, help me understand more. Can you give me some details on that? How many showings did you have? How long was it listed? How many open houses were done? What was kind of advertising? What do you think the agent should have done? Not in a blaming way, but I want to know what they think an agent should be doing and whether or not my marketing plan is going to fit and be successful for them.
Hmm. Yep. I like this question. Do they feel the home was priced correctly?
Yeah,
That's kind of loaded there.
yeah. Well, it is. And I've asked people prospects that on the phone, and they say, "Oh no, we thought it was like $20,000 overpriced." And I'll go, "How can I'll be out in 5 minutes?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Sometimes the seller thinks that the house was grossly overpriced, and it genuinely was the agent's price. So,
And then this one's interesting because we're still on the phone, but now you're starting to ask them about condition.
yep.
So you're asking them about condition. What questions are those?
Well, I'm going to ask them, in fact, as I start to work through this And after I get the answers to all 5 questions and talk more a little bit. But if I feel like I'm going to set an appointment, if I want to get an appointment and meet with them in person, I'm going to actually ask them to take me on a walking tour of the home over the phone, starting at the front door and walking me through the process over the phone. So I get a visual idea of what that property looks like and what the condition is. Tell me the color of the carpeting. Tell me the color of the appliances. I had one instance where I did that, and the person got down in the basement and they said, and so we have these daylight basement windows and a full finished basement. I said, whoa, wait, what? What? And they said, we have a full finished basement and daylight windows. And I said, when you say daylight windows, are you talking about the little windows way up at the top? Or are you talking about the ones that come about waist high? And they said, well, the ones about waist high. And guess what? I had the listing contract or the listing sheet right in front of me as I was talking to him from the prior agent. And I said, well, I think I may have found the problem in the marketing of your home. And they said, what's
Mhm.
that? And I said, I'll come out in be there in about half an hour and I'll show you in person and see what you think. I went out there with listing contracts all ready to go. And I sat down with them. I said, it was listed as full basement, not a daylight basement. You've been on the market for 6 months, listed incorrectly.
Mhm.
Do you
Mhm.
think I might be able to help you? And they went, oh my gosh. They signed the contract that day. It sold 7 days later, full price, the same price that they had been on the market for the past 6 months. So asking these questions about the condition of the home is really, really important.
Mhm. And once again, you're still vetting them, deciding whether or not this is going to be worth your time,
Yep.
and can I get them to a sold home? So it's as much on us as the agent asking the questions, not just going out and wanting to take every listing that we can get our hands on. So I like these questions. Number four is you're going to ask them, so how did you arrive at your price?
Most of the time, they're going to say, well, that was what the agent wanted. When in fact, it probably wasn't what the agent wanted, but they're trying to save face. And I get that. Very often they base it on what they think their neighbor's house was sold for, or they determine their price based on what they need to sell in order to buy another house, in order to, um, bring out the equity of their house to move forward and put it on another house that they're purchasing. Um, so generally speaking, I'm going to try to find out what method they use for pricing and whether or not if they need a certain amount of money to buy their next house and they need the equity from their house and there's not enough there realistically, I'm probably going to walk away from that listing. I'm going to say, you know what? I understand your situation. I can't help you. Have a nice day. Um,
Hmm.
as quickly as possible. Um,
Hmm.
and I tell a story about no next. I don't know if you've ever heard me say this one.
I don't think so.
Well, it's about a guy walks into a New York deli and he asks for a half a pound of smoked turkey breast. And the deli manager just goes, no, next. And the guy goes, wait a minute, what? What do you wait? He's I just wanted some smoked turkey breast. He goes, no, next. He says, don't have any. See, now if that was a real estate agent, he would have said, I've got some roast beef. Lunch meat over here. It's a lot like turkey breast, but it's a little different. Tastes a little different, looks a little different, but it might work for you. That's what a real estate agent behind the counter does every single day. We try to make stuff work that just isn't going to work.
Hmm.
So I encourage agents to take hard looks at the properties that they're attempting to list and make sure that they are in fact saleable, that they're priced at a point where the seller is going to, achieve their objective and you are too. So
Perfect. So I like this question. What would it do to your plans if you couldn't sell?
that is a question that it's kind of a guts gauge question. When you hit the guts gauge, that one's like pegging the guts gauge because most agents don't have the courage to ask that question. And therefore, a lot of sellers have never been asked that question. And so when I ask it, and I ask it every single time, they're many times they're shocked. They're like, well, what do you mean? That's not even possible. But the reality is it will open up a whole window to their motivation. If they say, well, that's just not an option, we have to sell. We have to move to Des Moines by
Mhm.
August 30th to have boots on the ground for the new job. Okay. Or we're getting married. We're selling, becoming a blended family. We're selling two homes, moving into one. That's not selling is not an option. Well, now I got motivation, don't I?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. This is interesting. Most sellers only hear the high range, the high number in the range. Like if I say 450 to 475, are they hearing 450? Are they hearing 460? Are they hearing 480?
Yeah. All, most of the last two. Yeah, they
Yeah.
always tend to hear the top part of the range, not the 450 of if it's 450 to 500, they're going to hear 599 or 499, or
Yeah.
500. They're not going to hear the 450. They're going to assume that theirs is on the high end. But at least now, if you've got them thinking in those terms, you have an ability now to focus in
hmm
that range on what price might make the house sell. At
hmm
least making progress there.
hmm I always like this question too, once I get in front of them. And I know today we're not going into the listing appointment, that's a different segment, but what are the things, if you would stay in your home, what are the things you would do?
Oh,
Because
I love
that's,
it. Yeah,
yeah, that's going to identify, well, my furnace is old. I kind of need a new roof. I was going to put in a new kitchen. Then it identifies some things that you'll be looking for as well in the
yeah.
pricing.
And that's a great way to phrase it because you're not saying, tell me about how your house doesn't measure up.
Right.
How would you want to improve it?
Mhm.
Very much it's in the words. It's in the way that you present something. Um, so yeah, I love that question.
The same way, I'll say, tell me what you love about this home. And they'll say, we love sitting on our back deck on the cliff that overlooks the creek. And it's showing me things that instead of, and I have a listing like that right now, instead of your standard 2.5 acres on a flag lot with cornfields in the back, they're now describing to me this beautiful property full of perennials and shrubs overlooking from their deck onto this creek that flows through the backyard with trees all over. Has the studio, that the shed that is not just a shed, it's a studio that you could have an art room in, or you could have an office in. So I like to ask that question as well, because that will also expand my mind to what a buyer may be looking for
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah. So at this point, Don, you have, if they want to sell, where they want to go, why their home didn't sell, how much they want to get, and what would happen if they couldn't sell. All great questions. And so what we're doing here is really a coaching scenario, because you ask them one question and then the next question is embedded in that answer, and you're moving along to gather information.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not working with a script, you're working with certain questions and then expanding your conversation based on the answers to those questions. That's
Yep.
exactly what you're doing.
Yep. All right. So now we're at a point where we get to decide, do we want this appointment, or do we just want to find a way to move on to the next one? But we're vetting them before, as you say, we ever get in the car and spend some gas money to get there. We know whether or not we want to. Let me ask you this. Do you ever knock on a for sale by owner's door?
Well, I have done that. And actually, as I got more and more return business and my business took on other shapes, you know, 20 years into my career, um, yeah, I would actually hire people to drop off my listing presentation to them,
Okay.
like a leather bound listing
Mhm.
presentation it had a bunch of questions, it had my credentials and testimonials and all of that. And I would actually hire people to go out and deliver them. I had like 20 of them at a time, but I had people dropping them off and then they would pick them up the next day or 2 days later. And so, yeah, I've done that. I've knocked on doors. Um,
Okay.
I found that calling, if Today's challenge, however, is that it's harder to get the phone numbers. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute.
Yeah, and the do not call list. Let's talk about that.
You want to
So,
talk about that now?
yeah, before we go over to that, so if you want the appointment, you're going to close for the appointment, and then we'll move forward with any questions well, let's go ahead and take that. So, what does that closing look like?
Well, now I always shift from a what I call open questions. They begin with a W sound in most cases, and they expand the conversation by saying who, what, where, how, those kind of things. It gives them an opportunity to elaborate. Now I tend to shift, and when I'm going for the appointment, and go to a closed-end question, yes or no. So, Harry, based on our conversation so far, do you think it would be valuable in having us get together and sit down and have a conversation for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes? Would that be okay? It's a yes or no question. It's not, what do you think about? It's
Okay.
now we're going for the close. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep.
And
Yep.
always, I never give them the, like, what time do you think we should get together? I always say, does Tuesday work better than Thursday for you? And does 7 o'clock work better than 8 o'clock?
Hmm.
Tell me which one works better for you. Again, it's a closed-end question, a very definitive, short answer.
And then once we get that, I love that approach. You're just going right in. It's not a decision to be made, but it's what time works best for you, 7 or 8 on Tuesday. And then we also want to make sure that all the decision makers are there. So how do we ask that question?
That can be a little bit delicate
Okay.
because sometimes the response you'll get is, well, I'll be here. My partner, my spouse won't be. And I would say to you, tap the brakes on that one right there. And
Mm,
just explain, well, I understand the way that I work, the way I found to be most successful is if I can meet with you both at the same time to get both of your answers to these questions in person and show you the marketing plan that I'm going to employ based on your particular house. Does that
mm,
make sense? And sometimes I'll push back and I will have to make a decision whether or not I want to meet with that one party. Um, and sometimes it's not even the person who is the owner of the property, supposed owner of the property, who's has influence in the decision. Sometimes
mm,
it's mom and dad in the background that still have a lot of sway. They may hold the lien on their children's property, for example. The kids want to sell it. Well,
mhm.
that mom and dad are going to have a say in that decision. So anyone who has any influence in that decision to hire you should be at that table.
Okay. So here's our takeaways. Doing something is better than doing nothing. Any prospecting method will succeed if you do it often enough. Consistency.
Consistency is key. Absolutely. Um, that one's from my mother, by the way.
Okay.
God rest her soul. She would look at me as I was growing up and say, just remember, doing something is better than doing nothing. Even if you do something and fail, at least you've tried.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
got it, heard you, still do. Um, and when I was in the advertising business, we had a philosophy, the ad agency I worked for had a philosophy of be big somewhere. Be big. If you're going to be, in that case, for example, you're going to be big on TV, you're going to be big on radio, you're going to be big in print, but choose a market, choose a niche that you are really, really good at and be big somewhere. In my case, it was expireds.
I love that.
Other people are very successful with FISBOs. Some people do open houses really, really well. I don't, by the way. I'm the worst. Don't ask me how to do an open house. I'm the worst source for that, by the way. Source of influence or sphere of influence. Some of our agents are incredibly good at working sphere of influence. Um, my idea of working sphere of influence is sending out a postcard every month. I'm not great at it by any means, but choose your niche and do really, really well at it
Mm.
consistently every single day.
hmm I always say pick one or two paths and do them well. There are a lot of paths. There's 10, 11, 12 different ways to prospect in real estate. And by the way, how much of your time should be spent prospecting? Katie's got it.
What's Katie, go ahead.
She's trying to turn her.
Sorry about that. 80%.
She's got it. 80% of your time, you're like, really? Yes. Whether that's you're out taking a walk with friends, you're playing pickleball, you're at church, you're serving at the Lions Club, you are always prospecting with your presence. How we prospect is another conversation, but 80% of your time should be playing in traffic. It should be this is a people business, having conversations because conversations come before closings.
Absolutely.
So,
And
yeah,
that's the one thing that will cause an agent to fail most quickly is when they are doing a great job of prospecting, whatever form it takes, and they get really, really busy and they stop prospecting.
yes.
Then you get into this peaks and valleys existence. You go great guns, you stop prospecting, you take a dive, you start prospecting again, you go back up, take another dive, and so on. Never, never stop prospecting every day. It doesn't matter how busy you are, make it your priority.
And if you're going to prospect expired for sale by owners, do it consistently. It's something that you have to work every day. You need to be checking the MLS every day. You have competition out there who have learned processes and they work them every single day. And so if you're going to do
Point.
expired or farming or for sale by owners, you need to do it consistently. One, you'll get better at it. But two, make it a part of your daily habit. The same way if you're a sphere person, you're writing your notes, whatever it is, you need to constantly be doing it. If it's what Don says, he sends out one big postcard every month with one line sentence on it. What's the one line sentence? One of those that you sent down that you sent to an agent the other day, had them
Oh,
sitting on their porch.
it was I try to do a really, really powerful graphics, a photograph, really high color, high density photograph. And in this one, it was a picture of a sunset over a lake with a beautiful house and gorgeous flowers. And I said, is it time for a change of view?
Perfect.
That's
Yep.
all it was. And
Yep.
on the back, my contact information. Didn't no sales, there was nothing selling me about who I am. It was just, is it time for a change of view? Real simple.
Yeah. So we want to limit our follow-up to those that are serious. And so you had a really simple follow-up program. It wasn't a fancy dancy app, a fancy and when we tell you that you can have 3 by 5 cards that Don's going to talk about, what we're doing is taking away the objection that you can't do it because you don't have this system, and this system. Sometimes you just have to jump in and do it, and you'll figure out how to do it better. So, what did you do with your 3 by 5 cards?
Well, first I have to tell you, one of the agents that I know very well and for many, many years said to me one day, I don't have a database. And I said, sure you do. He goes, no, I don't. I don't have a database. I said,
Hmm.
really? How do you pick up the phone and call your past client? And he says, well, I have this brown paper bag filled with Post-it notes and letters and so on that I collected. And I said, really? And in that brown paper bag, how many people do you have that you could pick up the phone and call? He said, oh, probably a couple hundred. Okay, you have a database. It's just not organized yet.
Hmm.
And so I had a method that was very simple. I use Excel, by the way. That's my that's my CRM. It's very simple. But what I used was a blue plastic recipe card file, like would buy them for like $2 at Meijer or someplace. And I used 3 by 5 recipe cards, and I would have their contact information, date of that the property was listed. I may have the listing itself glued to the back or whatever, but it gave me the time at which I was going to follow up with them, whether that was 30 days, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months from now. I was able to keep that file going and follow up with them according to that very simple system.
Hmm. I use a spreadsheet. On my anniversary cards, I literally have a column. The first of every month, I have on my calendar, send home anniversary cards. I have 2025, 2026, 2027, and that works for me. I have some things that are automated, some things they're not, and that works for me. So let's talk about the do not call list.
Well, there's a do not call list, and there's also the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. And
Hmm.
the DNC, the do not call list, does not permit telemarketing to any phone numbers registered on the do not call list. The TCPA, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, allows phone calls only during certain hours, and it varies by state. Michigan is between 9 and 9, and Florida is between 8 and 8. The difference between that two, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act regulates what I call robocalls. If you're using a machine, you can't do it. Same thing with the do not call list. It actually applies to any solicitation call. If they're on the do not call list, then you're going to have to abide by the do not call list and not call them. So the next step is, how do you figure out who's on the do not call list?
Hmm.
You hire someone to do it for you. That's, you can get the do not call list and you can check all the numbers that you're going to call. And I used to do that. Like, I'd start at 6 o'clock in the morning and get all my calls and phone numbers and everything, and uh, you know, scrub them against the do not call list and so on. But it's a lot of work, and I was pinching pennies back then, so I did it myself. But it's a lot more efficient if you hire somebody like the Red X. There's also Vulcan 7. There's a number of different suppliers. Exact, Contact, Bold Trail, Boomtown. There's a whole bunch of them that actually will search for the phone number for that homeowner, for that address, and then they will scrub it against the do not call list and give you a list that's ready to call first thing in the morning without spending 3 hours doing the research yourself.
Right. So what are some of the companies that you've used? You have a list of them here. And if Don's okay with it, I can send these notes out so then they'll have
Sure.
it. But if you then you because I saw some of you taking notes here, but I'll send these out to you in an email. But and it has the list. So what are some of your favorites? Red
Well,
X?
the Red X is the one that I used.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and now for example, I don't do nearly the volume that I did in terms of prospecting. Mine is more geographically and focused and price focused. So if I pick out, a five, six, seven, $800,000 house that I'm going to target, I can generally find the owner's name through public records, and then uh, use the white page, the phone pages and the white page website. So it's not, I don't do that much of it anymore, but if you're going to do volume in it, I would encourage you to use the Red X, or I think Vulcan 7. They're pretty close. I've heard good things about Boomtown, but I've never used it.
Okay. And then a couple others on here. Mojo, Land Voice, Key Leads, Bold Trail, and I Exact Contact. So those are just some that they could look into, and it would help make your job just a little bit easier. So thank you so much, Don, for sharing your expertise with us.
Sure.
What questions do we have? We're going to open up now for some questions. Anybody have
One
any?
question, being a total newbie, is where do you find expired listings? Where do you find that was up for sale and now it's not up for sale, other than remembering every listing every day and say it's not there anymore?
Uh, on your multiple listing website, whatever it is, whether it's Flex or whatever you're using, um, you can actually set up a program. At least you used to be able to set up a program where you will get a report every morning of the listings that have expired. Now, I had one set up previously that gave me an idea of geographically where I was targeting, price range, type of house. For example, I got to the point where I wouldn't go out and list 2-bedroom houses anymore. I'd list 2-bedroom condos, but I wouldn't go out and list a 2-bedroom expired listing because they were really hard to sell. So after a time, I started to go, these are the expired listings that I want. And I could search those within the multiple listing as an expired listing.
We'll follow up on that then with what you had just said. Um, you had mentioned before, specialize in an area and try to be very good at it and dominate. You just hit on something. Should we do a shotgun approach of any house that's out there, or should we pick a price range, pick a location, pick a type of house, or two or three of these things, and only go after those types of houses? What do you guys think?
It depends on how much time you have and how badly you want it. If you want to, shotgun approach, I did the shotgun approach when I was first getting started because I needed listings and I needed them fast. And so I went everywhere. And as my business grew, I could become more specific about the kinds of properties that I wanted. And now, unless it's a family member or a friend or somebody, I won't even touch a listing that's under 300,000, 400. It's just not worth my time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. How about any questions on any other topic while you have us here?
In the when you were talking about anyway, I can't remember what you were talking about, but the thought came up. Uh, do either of you or any of you, I see Doug's here now too, and Heather and Kate, um, do you ask them, have you done anything to the house, and or is there anything you think you should do to the house when you're trying to get the listing?
Abs, I asked that, and I'll let them answer, but I always ask that question when I'm at the listing appointment. There's nothing wrong with asking that now. As Kim said, she's got a question that she asked, which is, what would you do to the house to make it what you want? Sort of, that was the nature of your question, right, Kim?
Yeah, when I said, yeah, if you were to continue living here, what are the things that you were going to do? Do you have any things here that you were going to do or upgrade, or what would you like to do to your home? Yeah.
One of the processes that I use in my listing presentation in person is I ask the question when I get up to go and look at the house. I always ask a series of questions when I sit down with them at the kitchen table. And I go through those questions before I look at the house. And people sometimes say, why do you do it that way? Why don't you go through and look at the house first? And I say, because I'm going to ask you some questions about the motivation, the condition of your property. I don't want you to feel as though I'm saying something negative about your house. So I want to ask these questions up front if that would be okay. And they go, oh, okay. And in the process of that, when it's time to look at the house, I say, if you would show me the house now as you would want me to show it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to miss something that you feel is really important to you, that you've really enjoyed about your house. I want to make sure that I see that and can share that with with the buyers out there. Does that help answer your question, Jim?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, Don. I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us today. And hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day. And if you
I
need,
want to, we can't leave this without hearing from Doug Hale.
all right. Oh,
No, I was just going to reiterate what you guys were talking about. It's so important, right, Don, when you're gathering information on the phone before the appointment, and then when you're sitting down at the kitchen table. And the way both you and Kim described it, I wouldn't change a thing. I totally agree.
all right.
I'll put the check in the mail, Doug. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All
All
right.
right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again, Don, and call broker support line if there's anything that you need help with. Okay.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
See you
Thank
guys.
you, everybody.
Thanks,
All right, you're
Kate.
welcome.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Don and Kim. Always.